to build those reps and sets, even though it's not always going to be comfortable, just to learn how to do that and how to receive those conversations from those
Yeah.
people around you as well is a very important piece of this.
Yeah.
I would say what has helped me over time is the ability to separate the distractions and quiet the noise and learn to focus on what the most important thing I
Yeah.
need to do right now and what is the most important decision I need to make right now to affect the mission in a positive way. We're talking about people that we know that were injured. There's a lot of emotion behind that, especially when you know these people. Going in there and being in the calm in that chaos, I think was very important.
Welcome to Unbreakable Leadership, a no-nonsense podcast for leaders who want real-world lessons. I'm Peter Pollock, and with over 30 years of military and corporate leadership, I'm here to share struggles, successes, and practical advice that actually works. We'll look at real leadership stories that matter, focusing on attention, integrity, and growth through failure. Let's get started. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Unbreakable Leadership Podcast with Peter Pollock. My guest today is retired Chief Master Sergeant and an SEL as Senior Enlisted Leader from TRANSCOM, Jay France. And I met Jay through the teaching gig that I'm doing now. So we both teach intermediate and frontline courses to Global Strike right now. And it's a great deal. And if you remember 2 weeks ago, I talked to David Satchel. So I'm just working my way through the chief levels here. So Jay, welcome. Thank you very much for joining me. And first of all, I want you to tell the audience where you grew up, why you joined the Air Force, and what your experience was like in the Air Force for the 30 plus years that you served. And then we'll ask some very specific questions about leadership.
Yeah, sounds great. First, I want to say, hey, thanks for having me on, Peter. It's been great to get to know you over
Yep.
these last few months. Great to partner with you on sharing some things that are really important for strikers.
Yep.
Also, want to say thanks to your listeners for tuning in. You got a great podcast, man, and it's really an honor to be a guest on your show today. So,
Yep.
want to start off with that. But
Thanks.
yeah, for those listening that I may have never crossed paths with, I'm Jay. I was once a Chief Master Sergeant, had the privilege to serve in our United States Air Force for a little bit over 31 years. But to start it all, born and raised in Oak Harbor, Washington, right
Right.
outside of Naval Air Station Woodby. Grew up, we all have unique childhoods. Mine taught me resilience as a young
Yeah.
person before I knew what that was.
Yep.
And found the Air Force through a teacher in high school. I struggled a bit in high school, but through a teacher in high school that was a Vietnam era PJ. And he saw something in me that no one else did
Yeah.
at that time and encouraged
Awesome.
me to go talk to a recruiter. And yeah, that's where the path started. So came in the Air Force in 1990 as a then security policeman, ended up being a military working dog handler. And first 21, almost 22 years of my career was spent in security forces. Had the privilege to serve as an instructor, work in special operations for a while, did a lot of special duty assignments, got to jump out of airplanes for 9 years of my career, which was just an amazing experience. And then the Air Force put me on a different path and I became a command chief. Did that for a little bit, the last 9 years of my career, and finished as the command senior enlisted leader of United States Transportation Command. Walked off the stage April 1st of 2021. And I know we'll talk a little bit about this today, but
Yeah.
started a 5-month journey hiking the Pacific Crest Trail,
Yeah.
2,653 miles from
Yep.
Mexico to Canada.
I'm reading
And
all about it.
that was my time to unplug, figure out who I was as Jay, not the chief anymore,
Yeah.
and figure out where I was going to end up and what would be fulfilling and create that happiness that I was looking up for post career. But that's the kind of quick down and dirty about me. Looking forward to taking the conversation anywhere you want to go, brother.
Yeah, that's an incredible story. And I will admit I have not finished. I'm about 75% of the way through,
Yeah.
but is the book 5 Million Steps? It is an amazing story so far. I think you've just crossed the California border into Oregon, is it?
Yeah.
So that's where I am in the book. And it's an amazing book. And I'm actually kind of jealous. I think we kind of joked about this last time. I've had 4 knee surgeries, dude. I couldn't get 1 mile on that trail. I'd be like, can I have one of the angels come pick me up, please? Because I'm not going to get very much further on this thing. So I'm waiting for Dr. Cognetti out there to give me a new knee. I can actually try this thing, but it's maybe I'll get a hoverboard and do it on a I don't know. No, I'm not very balanced. I'd probably fall
No,
off that too.
I'm not sure anyone's tried that yet.
But yeah, it's an amazing book. I encourage anyone to read it out there, and it really talks about your resilience. It's funny you mentioned a teacher. I had a teacher also that maybe led me in the direction when I grew up in Australia to move to the States.
Mhm.
Said you got to do what you want to do, what you feel like you want to do, right? And his name was Mr. Frost, and it was my math teacher, and I took that to heart too, much
Yeah.
as maybe the PJ teacher did for you. But it's funny where we end up in life and the paths we take, Jay. So, the first question, your career in one story. If you had to sum up, and this is kind of a not a fair question, but I'm going to add it. It's a tough question. I'm going to ask you if you had to sum up your leadership philosophy in a single story
Yeah.
from your career, what would it be and why? A single
Yeah.
story.
The story is about the first chief that invested in me.
Mm,
So I was at my fifth assignment before I had a real conversation with the chief master sergeant. And I wish I could say that this was a feel good conversation, but it really wasn't.
okay.
I was very full of myself as a young airman and was good at my job. And I can't even say it was a little bit cocky. I was a lot cocky. And as an instructor, I was at the Air Mobility Warfare Center. It's now the Air Force Expeditionary
Yeah,
Center.
sure.
But he taught me a valuable lesson through a conversation he had with me to bring me down a few notches. And no one had ever done that before.
Yeah.
And that's the conversation I didn't know I needed to hear at the time, but I certainly needed to hear it. So, the lesson I drew many lessons out of that, but the important one to your question is I learned to lean into the difficult leadership decisions that we have to all make. And I learned to lean into those difficult conversations that need to be had rather
Mm,
than avoiding the uncomfortable things. Because all of our people deserve to be properly trained, properly resourced, properly cared for. And part of that care is telling them the truth sometimes
yeah.
when the truth is uncomfortable. So, yeah, that's the first thing that came to mind when I saw that question.
That's an interesting story, and I'd like to follow up what you said at the end there, telling people the truth and having those tough conversations. You read my book. I was fortunate enough that you read my book. Obviously, who wrote the foreword? You know the guy, CZ. He wrote the foreword of the book, right? And what does and he says, tell people what they need to hear,
Yeah.
not what they wanna hear, because there's
Mhm.
a huge difference. If people keep getting told what they want to hear, the confidence and arrogance just grows, and no one actually tells them what they need to hear. And it could be the truth, and it sounds like the chief told you that, correct? Would that be a good way to sum it up?
It is. And then you just made me think of my time as a chief too, because stepping into nominative roles, it was clear sometimes, of course, I had a great insight on the enlisted force because that's where I spent a lot of my time. But it was surprising to me sometime to hear officers across the services when I would interview for something or when I would have a conversation with someone. It was clear that sometimes no one had had that, or not many people maybe, had had those difficult conversations with them. And it was surprising sometimes to see the reaction of folks.
Hmm,
Or I would even sometimes say, hey, I'm your chief, or I'm going to advise you on some things that you need to hear that might not be those things that you want to hear. So, starting that, having that mindset early on in one's leadership journey,
yeah,
whether officer, enlisted, or civilian, or in the corporate world,
yep,
to build those reps and sets, even though it's not always going to be comfortable, just to learn how to do that and how to receive those conversations from those
yeah.
people around you as well is a very important piece of this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. I talked this morning about authenticity, and
Mhm.
authenticity is all about having real conversations. And yeah, that it's just amazing. But telling someone the truth,
Yeah.
telling them what they need to hear, not what they want to hear, is such a gift. We talked about that this morning.
Mhm.
Let me move on to your book, 5 Million Steps. By the way, I haven't got to the end of the book. You don't want to spoil it for me. Did you take 5 million steps? How many steps did you take?
It was 5,400,000 and something thousand, but that would have made for a long book title, so I couldn't round up to 6, so I had to round down to 5.
That's right. You were under 5'5", so you had to go down. Yeah, I
Exactly.
get it. I get it, man. Hey,
Yeah.
so in this memoir, there's a lot of, I've teared up reading your memoir. I'll be honest with you. There are stories that I'm like, I relate to. And I don't know the exact feelings that you went through, obviously, because I'm not Jay France, but having similar things happen to me, parents, single mom, raising you, I teed up at some of the stories. So, I think in a way it's an amazing book. But now don't think of the 30 years. Think of why you wrote the book and what you were trying to get across to people in that book. What was the one message that you wanted to get to people in your book, 5 Million Steps?
Yeah. Oof. That's actually a tough one, but I think that the core behind it all is it's important that we tell our stories
Yeah.
because you know, what I'm learning, what you just made me think about is even though it's written in my words, it's actually our story. Because what I'm learning is there are things in there, Peter, that I had never said out loud
Yeah.
that I was very hesitant to share.
Yes.
There was a little bit of embarrassment, a little bit of guilt. There was a lot of emotions going like, man, am I really going to put this out there?
Yeah.
Or what I have found and continue to find is those are the things that have resonated the most with readers. The people that have reached out to me and said, hey, I had a similar thing. Thank you for sharing your story. Or I had a similar experience and this is mine. So they're sharing their stories with me because it really is about connection. And through sharing our stories as leaders, we're building that connection with people and that's really the core. That's the reason. Even though I didn't know that when I started writing it, that's what I've learned since publishing it.
It's amazing. I can relate to that because I don't know when you thought about writing 5 Million Steps, but I didn't think about writing a book. I didn't wanna write I'm a freaking PE major, dude, and that's not petroleum engineering, it's physics. I'm a gym teacher, dude. So I don't write a lot of words, and I need a lot of pictures, right? And that's why my book is only 50 pages long. So good for you on that. But when I was teaching my leadership class, everybody kept on saying, "You need to write a book about this. You need to write a" I'm like, "No, I don't. I can't. No." And then when I got asked by like the 150th person, I was like, "Fuck, let me just write a damn book. Get it out of the way." But you're right. It does impact people. Sharing your story, there is stuff that I touch on in there that's happened to me. And you're right. I had the same experience. I was like, am I really going to put this? Fuck it. Let's put it. Brigadier General Amrine, I was playing golf with him one day and he said, it's a I don't know if I can say it in my best Australian accent or I need to dumb it down to an American accent. Cathartic. It's a very cathartic experience. I say cathartic, and you're like, what the hell is he talking about? It's a
Yeah.
cathartic experience, right? It's kind of therapeutic to do this, to write it down. And and then you let the whole world know. I mean, I'm putting LinkedIn posts now, and yeah, like Satch does. There's LinkedIn posts where we're telling people basically, hey, I've gone through this, and this is what this meant. They're very cathartic, and it was the book so I can imagine the book was like that for you because, yeah, I read some of the stuff and I'm like, "Wow, okay, okay, mucho respecto for Jay," right? Because it's just some very cool stories in here, and I think people can learn a lot from reading it. Now, you worked in special ops and jumped out of planes. Were you always static line? I got a question about that. Did you always do static line jumps, or were you sometimes free fall?
Only static line in the military. I
Make
did a
static
few
line in the
civilian,
military.
but static line in the
But you have
military.
free fall, right? Yeah, yeah. Me too, tandem. I thought I was gonna die both times. I was like, "Oh my god, I hope this guy pulls the chute behind me."
Yeah.
Yeah, 2. Over Hawaii, never gonna do it again. Bucket list, check. Anyway, so in the high stakes complex environments that you've worked in, think deployment or even home situation,
Mhm.
how do you stay decisive in and calm in a pressure moment when the information you're receiving is overwhelming? How do you stay calm and make that decision in a high pressure environment, say?
Yeah. I'll start with saying calm is contagious
Yeah.
and so is chaos.
I
All
like
right.
that both. I like both of them.
So let's assume that we have delegated properly because as a leader, we can't do it all.
Yep.
We have delegated properly and we have given the proper authorities to those people that we have delegated. And I would say what has helped me over time is the ability to separate the distractions and quiet the noise and learn to focus on what the most important thing I
Yeah.
need to do right now and what is the most important decision I need to make right now
Yeah.
to affect the mission in a positive way. Then once I make that decision, I'm going to see what information has changed, what is right in front of me right now, and then I'm going to make that next decision.
Yeah.
And if I screw it up, if I make a bad decision, I'm not going to dwell on it. I'm going to make another decision, and
Yeah.
hopefully
You
that
can
one's
always
better.
correct it. Yeah.
And we're going to tie all these micro decisions in to a larger, broader mission or
Yeah.
task that we're
Yep.
doing.
I mean, that's amazing. Yeah. So I love what you said about calm is contagious and chaos is contagious. Because if you got a boss
Mhm.
who's, let's say he's running a talk or an EOC and
Yeah.
he's freaking out, guess what?
Everybody's freaking
Everyone
out.
else freaks out. But if he's sitting up there really calm and just going through it methodically, checking the boxes, make sure we're covered, everyone else calms down.
Mhm.
It's contagious.
It is.
I can't agree more with that. Calm is contagious, but so is chaos. Love that,
Yeah.
Jay. Love that. Do you have any specific example you can share with us about when you were in a decision? Like you read my book about the Bagram decision when I was the guy in charge of recovering an F-16, and I'm not an aviator or anything like that. But do you have anything like that where people were counting on you to make a high stakes decision?
Yes.
And do you have a specific example you can give us? And it's okay if you don't.
I do. Yeah. It was one particular IED attack on members of my organization during an Iraq deployment. And, I arrived there as the leader of the Tactical Operations Center. Shortly, I could actually hear the IED go off, and I made my way back to our operations center as quickly as I could. And there was a bit of chaos going on, and took a calm approach, got the facts, slowed everyone down. Let's cut the radio chatter. Let's focus only on what we can do for those folks in contact right now. Let that quiet sit in for a minute. Let's take a breath because in the chaos and the panic, we might make a bad decision or we might rush to a poor decision. And I could see the faces and the shoulders come down. We weren't relaxed by any means, but we reoriented, we got our heads on straight. We focused on what those key decisions are at the time. Let's make a good decision and move on to the next decision. Whereas I think if I would have gone in there and lost my cool,
Yeah.
because we're talking about people that we know that were injured. There's a lot of emotion behind that, especially when you know these people.
Yeah.
Going in there and being in the calm in that chaos, I think was very important. Even if on the inside, of course, I'm worried, I'm concerned, a little bit scared for the folks that are out there. As a leader, you got to hold it together sometimes, and watch that calmness spread. Not to say it wasn't an urgent situation that required all of our attention and focus, but you can take a calm approach to even
Sure.
some of the most chaotic incidents.
Which goes back to your calm is contagious, right?
Yes.
If you'd gone in there with a chicken with the head cut off, everyone else would have been freaking out. But
Oh yeah.
even though you're right, everyone wasn't relaxed, but they calmed down and they focused. I'm glad you used that word, Jay, focus, because that's super important. You need to focus on the task, not take it for what it is, and methodically go through and make decisions. I love that. I love that story. When were you in? Was that in Balad? Let me guess. Was it in Balad? When were you in Iraq?
One Baghdad trip, one
Oh,
Kirkuk trip, and this was at Camp Buka, the
yeah.
incident I was telling you about.
Okay. When were you at Baghdad?
That was March of '03, right when everything kicked off.
Okay, right when everything
March
kicked
and
off.
April of '03. Mhm.
Yeah, I didn't go till '05 under Petraeus. I was working under Petraeus's organization, MNSTICI, the Multinational Security Transitional Command. Crazy times, man. Crazy times. But it changes your perspective, right? Deploying to a combat zone, no matter what happens, changes the way you think forever, doesn't it?
Oh, indeed.
It
Yeah.
changes your perspective on everything. Let's talk about mentoring. In your career, you've probably mentored thousands of MNs and NCOs, and you've done it in large audiences. You've done it one-on-one. For you being a command chief at your level, what's the one mentoring kind of practice that you believe senior leaders should lead? should use when they're mentoring people?
Yeah. A couple things come to mind when you say that. Probably for me anyway, what I found the most valuable was meeting them where they're at. Because
Yeah.
it's very easy for us with our experiences to drop what worked for us on top of a mentorship session.
Yeah.
Hey, this worked for me 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Maybe you ought to give this a try. When I would offer what worked for me 20 years ago wouldn't work today. So trying our best, even though we're not going to be able to be in that person's shoes and understand all things going on in life with them, to remember what it was like to be a person at that point in their career, at that level of development, at that particular rank, if we're talking about that, and then trying to understand the world that they live in now as best you
Mm,
can,
mm,
understanding that things are going to be different, way different.
yeah.
I went to the Air Force Association symposium up in Colorado about 3 weeks ago. And, I'm coming up on 5 years since retiring. And I went to the command chiefs panel in there, and, there were command chiefs from the Air Force, Space Force, and, Guard and Reserve. And I'm just sitting there watching them. I was absolutely blown away
Mm,
by where their heads were at, their level
yeah.
of understanding of the world, of the force today, of their airmen. It was vastly different from just 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I was like, "Man, I think I did okay."
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But the way I led and the things that I had to know and the depth of understanding I had to have with our
Yeah.
adversaries, with our service, with doctrine, with all of those things, where they are now is so far ahead of what I was even 5 years ago.
Yeah. Why why do you think that is, Jay?
I just think when you look at the across the force now, part of it, I think, is the access to information that people have now. As a leader serving at any level, you have to be on your game
Yeah.
because, and I'm not implying that anyone needs to run scared or anything, but
Yeah.
our airmen, our guardians, soldiers, sailors, Marines, pick a service. Young people have such great access to information. I would offer that today's younger people are far more inquisitive than I was when I was young. They have opinions, they are articulate, they are better in so many ways, just in one person,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
this guy's view, that to be an effective leader, you can't just repeat what you've done in the past. You have
Yeah.
to continue to evolve, you have to continue to get better.
Yep.
You have to keep up with the young people in some cases because they will quickly outmaneuver you
Yeah.
in the intelligence space, really, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so let's go down that rabbit hole a little bit, Jay. You're right. The access to information, and by the way, I retired in 2017. I'll be totally honest with you, dude. I am so glad that I did not, man, in this generation, in this time period of access to information, because so much of it, no, well, maybe not so much of it, but there's a ton of information out there that is very misleading, right? And not maybe accurate. I'll give you a perfect example. We went through a scenario last week in one of the Effie Warren virtual classes that we did. And they were young A1C guys. And we went through a scenario, they call it the stick scenario that Mark Mitchum came up with, a situation. And then you have to figure out what you would do. And we had 10 A1Cs, we had 5 A1Cs in one group, and we had a leader. And, oh, okay, are you going to share this information with the group? Like, they were pretending that they were in charge of the group, and they had to share the information, and it was about an accident, right? So, and they were really struggling with that. And I came and I told them this. I said, "Yes, the problem is with information is there is so much out there, like you said, and they have a voracious appetite for information. You have to share the accurate information of what you know." I said, "Don't hide anything from them. One, because they're going to find it out. And two, is because they're probably going to think you're trying to cover up something. So tell them what you know, because they can go back to their room and find it in like 35 seconds if you don't tell them what you know. So tell them what you know rather than try and hide something, because they'll get the information. I mean, the stuff that my daughters, they'll be surfing on the couch while I'll be watching TV. They'll, "Dad, did you know this? Dad, did you know this?" Oh my god, they got so much information. It's really crazy. So, yeah, that story, yeah, hits home, right? The appetite for information and the availability of that information. But on the negative side of that, there is a ton of misinformation out there, and we
Yeah.
need to be very careful enough. I actually
But I
don't know
think
how to.
where they, the younger generation, does a little better than, folks around our age or our level is their
Right.
ability to process it so quickly
Yeah.
also. Where you think about, 20, 25 years ago, we
Yeah.
had smaller bits of information to make decisions. Now, decision paralysis
Yeah.
can really creep in when you have so much
So much information. Yeah.
overwhelming amount of information to try and process to try to make the best decision and get it right. And
That's a
sometimes
really good
people
point.
stop
That is a
rather than
really good
just
point.
taking that first step, that first action, and then adjusting and adapting as you go,
Yeah, yeah,
you know?
that's a really good point, Jay, is that on what information do you act? I mean, there you're right, there's so much information out there. Wow, I never thought of it that way. That's a really good input. There is so much information because you're right, we had to sometimes wait for information, right? To come in. Wow, CZ can tell you a story. I talked to him about this on the podcast, but and on the podcast he was on, but we had an aircraft accident. We had a helo go down in Kadena in 2012 or 13. A guy named Smitty perished on board. Everyone else survived, but it was a loss of situational awareness, but it went into the mountain. But you're right. We had to control whatever information that we had to gather whatever information we could because it was in the middle of the woods and there were no cell phones. There was hardly any radio reception up there. It was jungle basically. And yeah, so the little by little information that we got, we had to control that. CZ was involved in the recovery, the rescue and the attempted rescue and the recovery of that. But oh my God, yeah, I never thought of it that way. It's really good, Jay. Really good. Let's talk about your transition. I know I think it was like the day after you walked off the stage, right? You said that, right?
2 weeks, yeah.
Yeah, 2 weeks. Yeah, I went to the southern end of is it the Pacific? No, don't correct me. Pacific Coast Trail. Is it the Pacific
Crest
Coast
Trail,
Trail? Crest
Pacific
Trail, Pacific
Crest.
Crest
Yeah,
Trail. And you started that 2 weeks after, and you'd
mhm,
been thinking about doing this for a long time, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yep, since I was 8 years old.
Yeah, yeah, I know, crazy, right? Well, you grew up in Washington. First of all, thank God you didn't join the Navy, even though I tried to join the Navy, but you grew up by both would be. But anyway, I tell you what, my life would be super different. I served a couple, I mean, you were in Transcom, obviously, it's COCOM, right? So I served with a couple Navy in joint positions, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so glad I didn't join the Navy. Anyway, I love my Navy people out there who are listening, but the Air Force was so much better fit for me. So anyway, when you think about that transition, you knew what you wanted to do. I talked to a guy about 6 weeks ago named Adam Peters who helps veterans through the transition. If there's someone like you who spent 30 years, who's done nothing else since they were 17 or 18, what's the number one takeaway and think bigger than your 5 million steps thing, because not I mean, probably less than half a percent of the people wanna go and do something like that, which is still amazing, but what's the one piece of advice you would give someone who's transitioning after 30 years and that's all they've known their entire adult life? What's the one bit of transition advice you'd give them?
I will say give yourself the time you deserve to figure out what it is that you wanna do, figure out who you are in your post-military life, and take that time that you deserve. Yeah, I spent it walking a long distance, which allowed me to process the 31-year experience,
Yes.
to figure out who I am now, what I want to do, all of those things. The hike, the trail that you talk about was just the way I did it. You don't have to hike 2,600 miles to figure
Yep.
that out. You
Yep.
do have to take that time because what I observe still, what you may have observed, Peter, and continue to observe is many of our brothers and sisters don't put thought into it before they
Mm.
transition.
Mm. Yeah.
They jump right into the
Yep.
first thing, and then sometimes a few months later realize that they are not where they want to be, and if they could do it all over again, they would make a different decision.
So your kind of suggestion is take time to figure out what you
Exactly.
wanna do. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that,
Because
man.
in my situation, I had some opportunities that would have been great for some folks
Yep.
that were presented to me that just weren't great for me. Those opportunities would have robbed me of my soul.
Yeah.
So I am glad that I
Yep.
took that time, made some good decisions, and figure out where I wanted to go. I just happened to spend that time on a trail.
Yeah, that's fantastic, fantastic advice, and well, definitely, I understand what you say about people jumping into the first thing that comes along. I mean, I did exactly the same thing today. I was sitting in the parking lot at a hotel on terminal leave, and I had, like, 4 days left of terminal leave. My effective time of day was, like, August 1st, and it was, like, July 27th, and I got a phone call, and they said, "Hey, we need some personnel to run BCMR, Border Correction and Military Records stuff. This is a contract." I was like, "I'm there. When do I start? Monday? Okay, good." 'Cause I had the same mentality. I was like, I need to provide for my family. My terminal leave actually starts on Monday. I need to start something. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was a great time. I had a great time. So maybe a little bit different experience, but you're right. I jumped on the first thing that happened,
Yeah.
and that was BCMO, Border Correction and Military Records.
But
Well,
but
what
I,
an
I got to say though, it's important to bring up because I often hear criticism of
Yep.
folks that do that. Sometimes people have to, because you brought up a great point, and I get this question a lot. Hey man, I really that must have been an awesome experience. You had that, but here's also something. My wife retired a year and a half before I did. She had already secured employment. Our
Mhm.
kids were already in school. We chose
Yeah.
to stay
Yep.
right where we both retired here local, so we didn't have a lot of those stressors that come with a transition sometimes.
Yep.
Sometimes people will, for a number of reasons, need to take
The
a
first thing
job
that comes along.
immediately.
Yeah.
And some
Yeah.
folks may not have that time that I just talked about, but it's okay to make another decision 6 months, a year, 2 years from
Yeah,
now.
absolutely. No, no, no. That's a good point. Yeah, yeah, obviously, if your wife had retired before and there was already passive income coming in, already active income coming in, you could
Mhm.
afford to do that, right? So,
Exactly.
yeah, I totally get. And my wife doesn't work, and that's fine. I've been fortunate enough to be able to provide the life without her working. But I would tell you, her working at home, she is worth way more money than I could ever bring into the house, which is what she does with the house, right? So, yeah, I totally jumped on it. 60K a year, man. I was like, I'm there. When do I start? Monday? Do I start Monday? So, anyway, very interesting. So, let's take a step back real quick and remember the podcast is called the Unbreakable Leadership. So, I'm trying to get through to people that it's okay to fail, right? And we actually talked about today, Josh Hart and myself, Hurt and myself talked about it today, that it's okay to fail because that's how you learn, right? So I want to ask you specifically, what was the one time that you failed, and what was that lesson from that failure that you learned?
I would say the biggest failure I had, and there were many, the biggest one was failing myself and not getting the care that I needed. And I'm talking, on the mental health front there. Wow. I stepped away from a career field after 22 years with a 5-day notice. I was already going to Hill Air Force Base to be the security forces manager, so the cop chief there. And I had interviewed for the command chief position, didn't hear back, and the process was different than it is now. And I'm going into TLF with my family, getting ready to
Yep,
drive up. I was in Las Vegas, so it's
yep,
5, 6 hour drive. And I get a call. They're like, "Hey, yeah, you're going to be the command chief. Congratulations." I was like, "Whoa, let me just go to clothing sales and swap out my insignia." And didn't put a lot of thought into it. And unfortunately, I had opportunities throughout my career that allowed me a larger scope, larger scale. So the transition into that world, I think I was as best prepared as I could have been. But what I didn't realize is stepping away from my tribe, how that was going to affect me.
mhm,
Worked with some great people, but people that didn't understand the world that I grew up in. We didn't have
mhm,
similar experiences, and I
mhm,
realized that I was leaning on my defender brothers and sisters a lot. We all were leaning on each other to cope with, those downrange experiences.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, 4 deployments to Afghanistan and 3 to Iraq caught up
Mhm.
with me, not
Yep.
in a good way.
Yep.
And, wow, but I was the base command chief.
Yeah.
I didn't wanna go to mental health and, do all these things. I was in rooms, brother. This is as the mental health crisis and
Yep.
suicide was picking up and
Yep.
a lot of things were going on. I'm in a group of senior leaders and folks are like, "Oh, we gotta talk about this again." And these are folks that were gonna know right away that I was one of the people we were talking about that needed help.
Yeah.
So that caused a little bit of a delay. And when I finally got the help that I needed, started to feel better, started to understand
Yeah.
that, man, I should have done this a long time ago because there were
Yep.
years that I knew I needed to do this. So I had failed myself. And how
Yep.
that translates to the leadership piece is, man, how much better could I have been for
Yeah.
my family, for myself, for the airmen I served as a leader in multiple roles if I would have taken better care of myself?
Yep.
Because there were times when I probably wasn't that pleasant to be around.
Yeah.
Short tempered, headaches and a whole bunch of different things going on that prevented me from being the best husband, the best father, the best
Yep.
airman, the best leader,
Yep.
because I chose not to, seek help. So that's a failure on myself. That's probably the best example of a leadership failure.
It's about knowing yourself. Here's the bottom line, knowing yourself, right? And I got chicken skin, you telling me that because I've just read that chapter. I've just read that chapter in the book where the incident at the dinner occurred, and you just broke down and you froze.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
I get it.
yeah.
I get it. Stop being a baby and stop crying now. Okay. Last question I want to ask you before you delve into my life. Leading millennials and Gen Z, right?
Mhm.
Leadership generational dynamics are real, man. You know that. The generations
Yeah.
think different. Our
Yeah.
grandparents said about our parents, they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Our parents said about us, they don't know what the fuck they're doing. We said it about our kids, they're fucking crazy. Our kids are gonna say about their kids, man. What's the number one thing that leaders in our age group get wrong with today's kids, with Gen Z? What's the one thing that and, think about your kids because they 'cause they're almost Gen Z. What's the one thing our age people get wrong about leading people? Like, they're lazy or what do they think? What do they get wrong, Jay?
Yeah, and I think we're doing a lot better in this space, brother. I think it's the fact that some and I'm probably guilty of this or was at, some part of my leadership journey. The belief that, our younger generation has to conform to my way of thinking, my leadership style, my communication style, rather
100%.
than flipping it around.
Yep.
It's our responsibility as leaders
Yes.
that have more experience, that should have more maturity
Yes.
to turn that around and engage in a way that we can connect with them, communicate with them in a way that resonates with them, not try to create a forcing function that allows them to conform to our ways. I think
Yep.
sometimes leaders get that backwards.
Yeah, yeah.
And when we do that, when we turn it around and establish those connections with them, we learn a lot of those things I talked about in an earlier comment.
Yeah.
We learn that they're educated, they're informed,
Yep.
they have opinions, they have great value to add to conversations if we ask them. And we miss a lot of opportunities by not connecting in a way that's meaningful and we can actually build those connections with them because we're so trapped in our ways
Yep.
of doing things that might have worked a long
Yeah.
time ago, but probably not today.
Yeah.
So hopefully I answered that. I kind of
No, no, no.
said a
You
lot of
you
words.
answered it perfectly, and I'm gonna follow up with a little story real quick before you get we before we transition to you asking me questions. So
Yeah.
as you were telling that story, I understand back in the 2001, I was teaching ROTC, And I had a ROTC PAS, professor of aerospace studies, '06, who is an absolute, I'm sorry, I'm going to tell, I'm not going to say his name, but he's a fucking asshole. Right. And he treated me like shit, Jay. And I was so young. I was a junior captain, very junior captain. Right. And I was doing my best and he just kept on me and on me and on me. And I actually went down and spoke to his boss. Probably the dumbest one of the dumbest things, this is not in the book, so you won't know this story, but oh, maybe it is. I went down and spoke to his boss, and I said, "He's doing this and this and this, and, I don't like it." Colonel Cantrell, I'll remember, and that was the guy I spoke to, right? Cantrell was his boss, and he looked at me, this is what you were talking about, he says, "It's your job to adapt to him, not the other way around." Huh? So back then, that probably was true.
Yeah.
It is no longer true today.
No.
However, let me caveat that. There's still some adaptation that needs to take place on both ends, right? So with these Gen Z folks, we need to adapt to them, but they also still, it's still the military, Jay. Come on. They still need to do some adaptation of themselves to us, right? But we absolutely need to go further than we used to back in that generation where it was like, "Fuck it, you better listen to your boss and salute smartly and shut up," right? You can't do that anymore. It doesn't
Yeah.
work with this generation anymore. So, um, yeah, when you were telling that story, I was like, "Yeah, yeah, that's legit." Because I in my AU class that I teach, I actually put that out there. I said, "Hang on, Gen Z, is it their job to adapt to you or your job to adapt to them?" And 99% say it's both. You have to meet in the middle. You have to meet in the middle. And I get on folks who say one way or the other extreme. It's still the military. They have to adapt to us. No, it doesn't work like that anymore. And then some people who are all empathetic, "Oh, we have to adapt to them." And I'm like, "No, you gotta keep some of your standards up, all right? You can't be too
Yeah.
empathetic." Anyway, Jay, I'm
Yeah, that
gonna
doesn't
turn it over to
excuse
you.
standards
Yeah, go on.
because, it is an individual's responsibility to conform to the norms on the team, to be a
Sure,
part of the team.
sure.
The team doesn't have to, embrace your individuality. You have to figure out a way to take what it is that makes you who you are and add value to the team. It's not the team's responsibility to, bend over backwards to make everything great for you. Yeah.
100%.
Great point.
All right, man. Over to you. Ask me questions. I'm an open book, man.
Yeah, man. So looking back, what is, and this is a two-parter, what would you tell your day one in the Air Force self
Well,
about making mistakes and about success? Let's start with the mistakes.
that it's okay to make mistakes. I was so scared when I first came on active duty. I was like, Dude, I can't fuck up. Oh my God. I I don't have anything else to do. I don't want to be a PE teacher back in Hawaii, man. They don't make much money." So I was like, "I can't screw up, man." And so I would do everything in order to keep people happy so that people liked me.
Mhm.
Totally incorrect thought philosophy. I think I've told this story in the book or before, but one of my first commands, my first command, I wanted to be everyone's friend. I wanted, and we know leadership's not a popularity contest, right? But I thought it was. I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna be, yeah, everybody's gonna like me. I have to be everybody's friend." Yeah, wrong fucking answer, Pollock. And so I would, yeah, I tried to be everyone's friend, and until I lost control, basically. And I had one sage civilian tell me, They don't want to be your friend. They want you to be their leader. Stop being their friend. Stop trying to be liked by everybody because people are not going to like you, whether you like it or not. You just have to get used to that." So if I could tell my day one second lieutenant Butterbar that went, "Oh my God, I'm in Omaha, Nebraska from Hawaii and Australia," that was a shock in itself. And I would say that you don't have to be everybody's friend,
Yeah.
eh, but it's okay to mess up. I would tell that same dude, Peter Pollock, that it's okay to make mistakes. You don't have to be perfect. In fact, people prefer you not to be perfect. And don't think you're perfect because nobody's perfect, right? And what was the second part of that question?
What would you tell your day one self
Yeah.
about success?
Oh, about success?
Yeah.
Success is not winning awards. Success is not about winning awards. Everyone thinks, and we, unfortunately, you'll appreciate this enlisted promotion system. We have created a system where the people get awarded based on, oh, he won Airman of the Quarter. That's bonus points.
Mhm.
No, dude, there are 3,500 airmen that are pretty fucking good,
Mhm.
but he just happened to be chosen because maybe his package was better.
Mhm.
But so I would say not winning awards, not getting into the mindset that winning awards equals success, right? Success is, well, I can say it now. Success is having people still call you and ask them to retire you that worked for you when you were an A1 when they were A1C. Oh my God, Jay, I've retired probably 12 or 13 people over the last 9 years since I
Yeah.
retired,
That's awesome,
and
brother.
getting that call from people, you want me to do it? I mean,
Mhm.
I've had command chiefs who worked for generals call me, and
Yeah.
I'm like, "What?" I think you see success differently. It's the way you treat people, right? It comes down
Mhm.
to just treating people like humans and being a good dude, right?
Mhm.
But being a good dude is very different from being everybody's friend. So they're
Yeah.
kind of connected, not really connected. I hope I answered your question.
Absolutely.
But yeah, success is not winning awards. It's actually having people call you up and ask for advice.
Mhm.
Um, Say, "Hey, can you send me a book?" I've had people do that, and I'm like, "You cheap bastard! It's $9.50 on Amazon. Why don't you buy a freaking book?" Eh, and having them call you back 20 plus years later saying, "Can you
Yeah.
retire me?"
Yeah.
That is like, I guess I did something right.
Yeah.
So yeah, don't be afraid to screw up and just do the best job that you can do.
Yeah. Man, I love it. I appreciate
Yeah.
sharing that too and allowing me the opportunity to ask that,
Yeah.
for those 2 questions.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's all. No more questions. Come on, man. No, I'm kidding. You don't have to answer another question, but unless you want to. Do you want to ask another question? Get one more question.
Okay. Hmm.
Don't ask me where my accent's from. You know.
Yeah, I know. So what advice do you have? Because in your show, you do a great job of
Yeah.
asking the questions. What's the biggest piece of advice you have to share with people that are transitioning, since we spent a lot of time talking about that today?
First of all, I would tell veterans because most of us need to keep doing something. We do really need to keep doing something because I've heard probably my transition, my ETAPS, you went to ETAPS too. You probably heard this, but if veterans transition and decide I'm going to fish on a lake for the next 30 years, you won't last 30 years, dude. You'll die within 5 years, right? We are driven people. We follow rules. So we have to do something to keep our mind fresh,
Yeah.
to stay young mentally and physically. I would say you have to continue the same values that you had as far as the rule following, keeping your mind fresh, keeping engaged.
Mhm.
But I would also tell everyone, and this is gonna sound harsh, don't expect the corporate world to be the same as the military because it's 100% not.
Yeah.
It is not the same. Like, period, dot. Leadership's not the same. They treat leadership differently. They consider leadership differently than the military. They do, and you know what? I would unfortunately say they don't value military leadership as much as they should. So, my caution in transition is that make sure you know what you want to do and know your worth, right? Know that when you go to a company, you can contribute in other ways other than being a senior leader such as yourself, being a retired O 06. I don't need to be in charge of 2,500 other people when I go
Mhm.
to USA. I was happy in my cubicle, man. All right, cool. What do you want me to do? Send an email? Got it. Right?
I'm on it.
So stay active,
Yeah.
right? Stay active. Don't expect to get this to go into an organization, especially a corporate organization, and expect the same treatment, the same respect, everything like that. Because the corporate world's just different. It's not
Right, yeah.
bad. It's just different, right? So I think that's what veterans kind of misperceive when they talk about transition. I'm going to try this and make all this money. No, you're probably not. Good luck with that. It's usually the retired, very, very senior people who
Mhm.
can do that and are valued a lot differently than a retired chief or a retired colonel. Where a diamond does, dude.
100%.
Um,
Yep.
so anyway, but it's fun. But stay active.
Yeah.
Stay active, or else you'll lose it in like 3 to 5 years. And statistically, it says that. So
Yeah.
anyway, that was a terrible answer to a great question. Sorry
No, I
about that.
think it was great, and I'm happy as I approach this 5-year retired mark here
Yeah,
in a couple weeks to have survived
yeah.
that window.
Yeah, no, and transition is not easy, right? But you actually have to work. Your
Yeah.
transition opportunity is not gonna land in your lap. You actually still have to go out and seek them, and I'm so mad that they didn't have Skill Bridge when I retired,
Mhm.
because that would have made everything a lot easier.
Mhm.
But plus I also retired from overseas. Unless you're gonna stay overseas, I would not do that because I retired from overseas and I didn't have the contacts that I should have had back in the States. So when I
Yeah.
landed in the States, that's in the parking lot of it wasn't the Red Roof Inn, it was like a Courtyard Marriott. In that parking lot, I was like, "I'll take it," because I took the first thing. I didn't know anyone. It was a Facebook message I got from a friend. It's
Mhm.
literally how I got my first job because I hadn't established the contracts back here. So if
Yeah.
you're gonna retire from overseas, either stay overseas and retire, or else come back, do one more assignment or one more year at least, and then retire. So
Yeah.
anyway, Jay, this has been fantastic, dude. This has
Yeah,
been
thank
really,
you.
really good. I've
Yeah.
enjoyed this. And audience, I hope you guys got a lot out of this. Jay France is a good dude. I can definitely say Jay France is a good dude. I'm still reading your book. I'm still going to do the Amazon review and give you a 5 stars, man.
I
I
appreciate
love the
that.
book. Love the book. And love the conversation that we've had today. And it's been generally a good conversation, Jay.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. Thanks for sharing your story. Love your book as well. And, yeah, this was a great opportunity. Always good to connect with you, man. I look
Yeah,
forward to, continuing to get to know each other better as we move on,
absolutely.
helping others and developing
Yep,
others, man. I'm glad our paths crossed, brother.
absolutely. Thanks, man. Jay, take care. Everybody, you be good, be safe, unbreakable leadership, strength and honor. Thanks for tuning in to Unbreakable Leadership. If you found value in today's episode, be sure to follow and share it with a fellow leader. Remember, leadership is about action, growth, and staying true to who you are. I'll catch you next time for more real-world lessons. Until then, keep leading well. Strength and honor.